Good evening, I'm Leland Vittert. Grandstanding or a stand for what's right? Here we like to say two things can be true at once, but two things can also be wrong at once. Attacking the Capitol is wrong, and so is using the attack as a political football. This is even more true when real people, Capitol police officers, were put in harm's way on that tragic day. We heard from them earlier today.
I was grabbed, beaten, tased, all while being called a traitor to my country.
In front of me, a man seized the opportunity of my vulnerability, grabbed the front of my gas mask, and used it to beat my head against the door.
Apparently they seen, even through my mask, they saw my skin color.
One woman in a pink MAGA shirt yelled, "You hear that, guys? This voted for Joe Biden." Then the crowd, perhaps around 20 people, joined in screaming, "Boo!" No one had ever called me while wearing the uniform of a Capitol police officer.
As emotional as that was and as awful as January 6th was, let's look forward. To help us understand what Americans can expect to learn from the hearings, constitutional law expert Professor Douglas Godfrey of the Chicago-Kent School of Law. Professor, we appreciate you being with us, and we know you also worked in Congress as well, so have a unique perspective of this. FBI and U.S. attorneys have charged a number of people. They've had investigations, and they have put a number of people behind bars. What do we hope to learn differently from this report as opposed to all the other investigations that have happened?
Well, there are several very important things. One is we have to remember that this committee has subpoena power. They can summon people before them, put those people under oath. As any investigator will tell you, that's just vitally important. And second, the committee can take a much broader view. The individual prosecutions, there are over 450 of them, right, only concern that individual's criminal liability. The committee can take a much broader view. How extensive was the knowledge of a potential attack before it happened? How involved were certain groups like the 3 percenters? Why was there such a miserable failure of the security in the Capitol building?
Yeah, those are all important questions. You mentioned subpoena power. So how high up does this subpoena power go? Are we going to see Vice President Pence or Chris Miller, the Secretary of Defense, all of a sudden called? What about Leader McCarthy, who we know was on the phone with the president?
Yes, all of those can be done. And just today, the Biden administration told the former members of the Trump administration that they can go ahead and testify. So they're not going to be able to claim executive privilege. So the subpoenas could go to former members of the cabinet, to Vice President Pence, even to Mr. Trump himself.
One might imagine they're going to have a hard time compelling the president, the former president, that is, to show up.
Yes, and it's a cumbersome process. While Congress has subpoena power, it has to go to the courts to get them to enforce it. And that can be a long, drawn-out battle. And we've seen with the subpoenas about Mr. Trump's tax records for the grand jury that eventually the Supreme Court says he has to turn over. That's been a very long, drawn-out affair.
You've worked in Congress before. Who ends up writing this long report?
Staff members, and that's vitally important because over the break, Congress is coming into a break. Over the break, they'll put a lot of subpoenas out for documents, for tapes, radio runs, things like that. And then individual staff members for the majority and minority committees will start to pull together their cases. And those are the people who are eventually going to write the reports that will be approved by the members of Congress.
You mentioned majority and minority. It's sort of majority and majority because it was Nancy Pelosi who said she wasn't going to seat a couple of the Republicans that Republicans wanted to put on. So therefore, she picked Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney to be on the committee. Have you ever seen anything like that before where the majority told the minority who they could and could not have on such an important committee?
No, but unfortunately, in my opinion, the minority has politicized this question, and then they wanted to put some real flamethrowers on the committee as representative of the Republicans. And that's not going to really get us what we need. If you look at a committee that functioned well, like the 9/11 committee, they were able to come up with some compelling recommendations that led to the founding of the Department of Homeland Security that ensured better communications with local police. Since we don't have that bipartisan cooperation here, it will be very easy for the minority to attack whatever result comes out.
I understand the point. I guess the question would be, from a broader sense, if you have a report that is inherently partisan, as this one will be, how do you expect the rest of the country then to accept it?
Well, you have to make it very fact-based. You have to take all the emotion out of it, if possible. And eventually you have to have people outside of the Congress promoting it that people will respect. Whether that occurs or not, I don't know.
All right. Well, that's a good point. Fact-based and taking emotion out of it is things that have not been happening in Washington over the past four or so years. Law professor Douglas Godfrey, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it, as always. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Excellent insights. We're going to continue the conversation about the committee, specifically the politics at play here, with Johanna Mosca, former White House official in the Obama administration. Her other half, note I didn't say better half, Alyssa Farah, was not available tonight. So it's just you and me, Johanna. Nice to see you, as always. We appreciate it. You and I both are reformed Washington folks, so we will try not to speak in sound bites. And reasonable people can agree that what happened on January 6th was awful. There may not be adjectives really to describe it. So putting that aside and looking forward, is there a way that this highly politicized committee does not come up with a highly politicized report?
Well, Leland, it's great to be back. Alyssa and I have been texting about this because I think this is actually one of the reasons we came together. After January 6th, she denounced that attack. Having worked for President Trump and having worked with President Obama, I think both of us have seen the problems with partisanship. You know, I'm from Galesburg, Illinois, and I remember getting so frustrated that the partisanship in Washington prevented progress for Americans who need it. So, you know, I think that right now what we're seeing is actually that this partisanship is a long time in the making. The Republicans, when they had control, when I was in the White House, they had the House Select Committee on Benghazi. And if you remember that, you know, there was back and forth between the Democrats because Democrats weren't going to have.
No, we talked about this in our editorial meeting. We pulled out just for this reason, not knowing you were going to bring this up, but the pictures of Hillary Clinton testifying. And there have been a lot of comparisons to what happened. We see your lips moving, but I don't hear your voice. And what I'm wondering is are you back?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, I'm here. Okay, excellent. Okay, so, but again, out of Benghazi, Democrats didn't really accept anything in that. They said this is just a partisan hack job. With Jim Jordan and Representative Banks not on the committee and Republicans sort of boycotting it, minus Cheney and Kinzinger, how do you expect the people where you came from in Illinois to accept this as something other than a partisan report?
I think those Republicans who do want to find the truth have an obligation to our country. I mean, if we investigated Benghazi, which was on foreign soil and was important, but if we don't investigate a domestic terrorism attack on our capital, then shame on us. And I think you're going to see more Republicans come to the table. And already, you know, as we were just hearing, we're going to hear the subpoenas of former White House staff. And I think the question is, who's going to tell the truth? And look, I don't know where the blame is. I think that the blame actually is within ourselves a lot, and that leaders have a responsibility to think about the things that we're seeing, that we're saying, and how they're inciting violence. And I think we need to change that. And I'll say, Leland, I think it's our generation, your generation, my generation, Alyssa's generation. We're the ones that I believe will change it, because I think we've seen this dysfunction long enough, and we're not going to tolerate it anymore for our communities.
Let me try this out on you, that at some point, what brings America together, and we've seen this before, we saw it in World War II, we saw it after 9/11, is some really awful event, because the partisanship we are experiencing right now is in some ways a luxury born out of American supremacy from the 1980s and a relatively wonderful economic situation over the past 40 or so years. Do you think the January 6th attacks were bad enough to break through the partisanship? Because so far it hasn't happened.
Well, and we've got debates over masks, over vaccines. It's like, I think about that great generation that all got signed up to, risk their lives on behalf of our country, and we can't even get vaccinated for our country. I mean, we've got some real deep problems right now that we've got to evaluate. So I agree with you that historically it's taken a big event. And you would think that between a global pandemic and an assault on our capital, that we would find ways to come together. And I'll say that's exactly why, Alyssa, you and I are starting to have these conversations. And I think we can only try to have more of them moving forward. I think you're going to see some pretty senior staff at the White House get subpoenaed. And look, like they have to really be, I think, thinking about their legacy in history if they want to continue this lie.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, because President Trump is going to put an awful lot of pressure on any of them not to show up, not to testify, and if they do, to hold the line and sort of politically grandstand with it. Great point. Nice to see you as always, Johanna. Next time we're going to have the other half along here too.
Absolutely.
Great to see you. Thank you so much. There are quite a few, possibly few more important things members of Congress could be looking into. For example, we're learning now about a potential arms race with China. We want to bring you over here to the touch screen, show you that these new troubling images that are coming from the New York Times. This is a satellite image of a new nuclear missile site constructed in the barren desert in China. This is the tip-off right here. It's at one of those tents that would almost be over an indoor tennis court, but underneath this tent is not an indoor tennis court. It is a missile silo. The other missile site is hundreds of miles away in Yumen. Both of these combined, if we switch maps, we can show you the larger map, are going to give China roughly 230 new missile silos. Training area, missile silos, and then this is a laser base. This is in the far northwest part of China, the most rural and barren part of that. This is certainly significant, if not the greatest expansion of China's nuclear arsenal. Joining us now to discuss what this means, Dr. Rebecca Grant, China expert and strategic arms analyst as well. Doctor, is this as scary as it sounds?
Yes, this is scary. What we see here is China is starting to build up a bigger nuclear deterrent. The Pentagon warned us back in September that China planned to double the size of its nuclear arsenal. And now we see where some of those new warheads will go in that second missile field. And also, we've got to talk about that laser base and what it means.
Okay, what's it mean?
Right. So very interesting that this is on the imagery. We have known for a little while that China has created a ground-based high-energy laser. Its purpose is to knock out and disable U.S. and other satellites on orbit. And the Defense Intelligence Agency and others had predicted this would come online. This is a very clear picture that capability, we have to assume it's operational. And that means that China has the ability to threaten all our space constellations, communications, GPS, and everything that goes with that. It's a very scary capability unveiled in that photo also there, Leland.
We're going to put some of the photos back up. Any idea why now that China is increasing their capabilities so much?
I know why now. And our Deputy Secretary of State is over in the region, and China just said to her, "You're creating an imaginary enemy." Well, heck, that is wrong. What we see is China being much more assertive. Two reasons. They want to hold off Russia and India. They want to be that big dog in the military power. Another reason, Leland, it's internal. Don't forget, China's rulers are the grandsons of Mao's Revolutionary Army, and the politics within their military are very important. So part of this is about the power base in China's military itself internally.
I know it's difficult sometimes to tell from satellite imagery. It's much more of an art than a science to interpret these things. As we look, we see the roads there on some of these images. Any idea when these silos would actually become operational? How much time does the Pentagon have to plan for this laser being operational?
You know, I think we have to assume, and it's hard to tell, as you say, we have to assume that the laser is operational. And what does that mean for deterrence in space? Back to the missile silos, it's very interesting. They're not really that hard to see, are they? This is gorgeous imagery, but you know the U.S. military and Space Command have better pictures than this. Strategic Command will have known for quite a while this is coming. They'll have made their own estimate as to how soon this comes online. We won't know that, but clearly China wanted us to see this, and now is the time to realize we've got to deter China, and we've got to understand that in Washington. There is a bipartisan consensus about deterring China. It's got to get stronger.
Finally, there's some bipartisanship on this, especially when it comes to Hong Kong, a little bit in Taiwan as well, is sort of that it's bad. Now, what to do about it? You mentioned that meeting with Wendy Sherman, who's over in China, and the Chinese had a, shall we say, an impressive list of grievances against the United States. And they went on to say that we had hurt their feelings and on and on. Are we in a new Cold War?
Yeah, I think we are. And they have a chip on their shoulder from imperialism and all this. It's really not our fault. They've done terrible things. They've stolen our intellectual property. They spread COVID around the world. Yeah, I think we are pretty close to a new Cold War, and we need to be strong with our allies to face them down.
I can't help but ask a little bit of a political question. We know that President Biden is facing a lot of pressure from the political left to use the political clout with China, not over arms, not over Hong Kong, not over Taiwan, not over intellectual property, but they believe that climate change is all that matters. How confident are you that the U.S. is going to use its political power against China on the issues that you just outlined?
China is the world's biggest polluter, and here they want to build nuclear weapons, not do arms control. So can you really trust them on climate? I'm very worried about climate and China when we have these huge pressing issues of their building nuclear arsenal and everything else. It really worries me, Leland.
Is it worth sitting down and talking to them? Because a number of people in your field, more on the intelligence side, used to say to me, you know the Chinese are lying when their lips are moving, which sort of is what happened out of the meeting a couple of days ago. But it doesn't seem as though you can even have an understanding with them and then move forward.
It's always good to talk, but what's much more important now is the talks we have with our allies. Japan has come out with some very strong statements about the security of Taiwan, et cetera. So it's much more important now, I think, that we talk with Japan, Australia, Taiwan, put some forces there perhaps, and really shore up our partnerships in the Pacific and around the world. And then we have got to come to grips with the fact that we must decouple more of our economy and trade from China. We just can't take the risk. And that new nuclear base and that laser satellite killer weapon really should make us stop and think.
The other thing that would make you stop and think about all these new missiles now on the ground is, can we shoot one of them down if they come at us?
Yes, and we do have a missile deterrent, a missile defense system on the West Coast, based in Alaska and a little bit there in California, but it's designed against what they call a rogue threat, more of a North Korea or an Iran, possibly if they develop that, just a small number of missiles. We really rely, as we have for decades, on nuclear deterrence, that is having an arsenal big enough so that no one wants to try it in nuclear war. And it's very disturbing to see China, who has always had a very small nuclear force, wanting to build that up. There's no good reason to do that. There's no reason in the world for them to build those nuclear weapons. It is very, very disturbing.
Well, we're glad you were here. I wish I could say I felt better after our conversation, perhaps more informed, but not better. Thank you very much, Doctor. It's good to see you as always.
Thank you.
Thanks. Coming up, you are vaccinated, but should you still mask up? It's a question we are still asking 16 months into the pandemic, and the new guidance will only make you more confused.
4-3 headquarters expedite. We got a baby under the vehicle.
Part muscle, part miracle. We're going to meet a New York police commissioner who works with the cops that helped rescue an infant that was trapped underneath that car. And the crisis continues at the southern border as the government releases thousands of migrants without ensuring they even have a court date. We're going to talk to the investigative journalist who broke this story.
I got it. I got the baby.
All right, this police body cam video we first showed you yesterday, we're learning a little bit more about it. Officers in Yonkers, New York, teamed up with witnesses to rescue, as you just heard, a baby that was pinned underneath a car. Together, they used muscle, and you can imagine some sheer will, to lift the car off, pull the baby and its mother to safety. Joining us now, Commissioner John Mueller of the Yonkers Police Department. I dare say you're a pretty proud commissioner tonight, sir.
Leland, thank you for having me. I could not be prouder. It just, even still, just that little clip you just showed, like I've seen it a million times, I got chills.
As did all of us. We're going to show more video of the rescue here, and it highlights what police face every day on the job. I wanted to get to this issue, though. How are the mom and baby doing?
Mom and baby are still in the hospital.
Okay.
Baby had a fractured skull. Mom had a compound fracture to her leg. They're going to be okay. It's just a long road to healing, but we're monitoring that.
This is an important point, and Dan Abrams, who will have a show starting here on NewsNation in September, brought this up when we talked. At every moment, police officers get a call. They have no idea what they're going to show up to. We're going to roll this soundbite and then ask you a question on the other side.
And so I think that, that's part of being a police officer, is that uncertainty of what's happening next. It's why protocols are so important, because when officers are called to a scene, they don't know exactly what's happening. I think that the more important point, though, is that it does seem that in this current media environment that you just can't show, or we haven't seen much of, the more mundane aspects of police just doing good things for people.
Lifting a car off of people is not exactly mundane here, but here'd be the question. 8:30 in the morning, what police officer thinks he's going to show up to a DUI car crash with a baby pinned underneath it?
Yes, it is very random, is it not?
Incredible.
Yeah.
Do we understand what happened? That the person driving the car was drunk 8:30 in the morning and then crashed into a restaurant?
Yes, he hit a car and went into a tailspin. We believe he was drunk. We got a compel order for his blood, so we'll determine his blood alcohol content. But there was an open container in the car, and then he ran into the barbershop with mom and baby on the front of his hood until he eventually ends up in the back of the barbershop.
I know you've talked to these officers. Take us through sort of the play-by-play. Did they show up there from a 911 call or what?
They were actually next door getting breakfast at the bagel shop. Neither normally works the day tour, and they were just waiting for the breakfast. They heard the crash, and they went right over, and the rest of the body cam footage kind of tells the story, which really is, to Dan's point earlier, how great it is now to share these incidents with the public through body cams, because we're all just experiencing it as it's happening. So I think you're going to see, Leland, a lot more very positive body-worn camera footage. 800,000 police officers in the United States, 18,000 police agencies, 62 million 911 calls. The vast, overwhelming majority of them are going to show good, fantastic, wonderful work like you saw here.
Have you gotten a chance to talk to the officers in terms of how they're feeling? Are their backs okay after lifting up the car?
It's funny you ask. Rocco Fusco, one of the officers, he was the big guy who was actually, part of the lift team. He said, my back is screaming right now, which I would imagine it would be, because so much of this is probably predicated on adrenaline. Yeah. But he had a lot of help with civilians, which is another great aspect of this story. It's the civilian-police partnership where they all got together and saved this baby's life.
Oh, the baby's life, the mother's life. Thank God they were there. You alluded to this, but I feel like I have to say it obviously. It sort of highlights why efforts to defund the police, perhaps in this case, not defunding the police, saved lives.
No question. And what you're seeing across the country, Lehman, is we're going from defunding last year to refund the police, because people are recognizing you can have all kinds of different strategies and programs. But I always pose the question to people when they want to change, and we're not opposed to good reform and change. I say, okay, fine, you have those plans. What about tonight? What do I do tonight? And a lot of times those folks don't really have those answers. Yes, in a long-term strategy that has to be driven by facts and evidence and reason, we can move forward and we can we always want to be better. I mean, all of us want to be better. Right. So the key here is to proceed methodically and thoughtfully, and not just do what we did last year. I mean, almost every single major city has seen a tremendous rise in gun violence, and they're now refunding that money they took away last summer. Mr. Commissioner, we appreciate your time, sir. Thank you. And hopefully your officer gets a couple of beers to help with the pain in his back. I'm sure there's not people at the bar who probably people are lining up to buy him for him. Leland, I'm going to make sure to get a six-pack from me for sure.
For sure. Thank you, sir. Coming up, busloads of migrants are coming through the southern border literally daily. We're going to talk to one mayor who says his town has been changed forever. You can also follow us on social media at Leland Vitter. Continue the conversation about the police or anything else that's on your mind. Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Leland Vitter. Almost every day, there's a new report from the U.S.-Mexico border showing just how overwhelmed sectors there have become in controlling migration up from the south. Axios today reports that 50,000 migrants who crossed the border illegally have now been released into the United States without a court date, and the majority of them have not checked in with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. That reporter coming up in just a minute. The migration surge is having an immediate impact on daily life here in America. Everywhere in America, but especially for those living in towns near the border. McAllen, Texas, for example, local bus routes have been added to accommodate the influx, but locals there have said it's simply not enough. And this is during one of the most critical years for immigration policy in recent history. Numbers show a continued surge of people attempting to cross the southern border illegally. Recent months have shown higher than normal border crossings, record months for encounters with migrants, and more than 1 million apprehensions this year alone. Amid the debate, authorities on the scene at the U.S.-Mexico border are beginning to release migrants anywhere they want into the United States, simply on the promise that they will register with ICE. This is the reporting by Axios that shows, shockingly enough, 50,000 migrants released. In their words, few report to ICE. Steph Kite, author of that Axios report, has been following migration trends for Axios. Steph, good to see you. We appreciate it. As we understand this process, people are sort of captured or rounded up and then given just like a handshake or a piece of paper. What does the federal government know about all these folks?
Well, typically when migrants would cross the border, they'll be apprehended by border agents who then will process them, get the basic information about them. And what usually happens is they're released with a notice to appear in immigration court. So their immigration process has already begun by the time that they're released by border officials. But lately, because certain sectors have been so overrun and agents have been so short-staffed, that they've begun releasing some, mostly families and adults, into the U.S. Without that notice to appear in court, and instead giving them a paper that tells them to report to an ICE office. It usually means they give them a sheet of paper that has a bunch of different addresses and contact information for different ICE offices across the country. So the idea is the migrants can cross, they can get to their final destination. Most migrants have family already in the U.S. that they're planning to reunite with. And then the goal is to get them to go to the ICE office.
Of these 50,000, these are 50,000 that the government knows about and have captured in one way or another who've come across. Forget all the ones that have come across and we haven't captured, but any idea where these 50,000 people are?
There's really no way to know for sure. I had the opportunity to go to the border in April and was able to visit one of the nonprofit houses where a lot of migrants will pass through. And you could see different travel checks all over the office that shows that migrants are going all over the place in the U.S. So there's no real way to track this until they show up to an ICE office and give information. And certainly some have, but at this point, most have not so far.
And we want to be clear, this is different than catch and release, because what you're describing makes catch and release seem like tough law enforcement.
This is different from catch and release merely because they don't have that immigration court date set. So there's no legal immigration process that has already started. So it really puts the burden on migrants to show up. And the one thing that kind of incentivizes them to do so is that they could potentially get a work permit if they're asylum seekers and they're waiting here. They could work legally if they show up and start that process.
Based on your reporting, it doesn't seem as though that incentive is done that much, because only 2.4% have registered, right?
About 13% of the 50,000 have actually showed up and gone to ICE.
Okay.
And far more have not. And I will say that there's a 60-day time frame that migrants are given to show up to these offices, and about 27,000 of that 50,000, so a good number, are still within that 60 days, but still have not shown up to an ICE office so far.
Wow. And if they show back up to an ICE office, that just simply begins the immigration process all over again, in other words. So it's not like them showing up means that they're going to show up and be deported.
Exactly. That starts the immigration process. Most of these migrants are asylum seekers and are wanting to go through that asylum process.
Steph, great reporting. Keep up the hard work and come back to us when you got more scoops, all right?
Will do. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Incredible. The immediate impact of this influx of migrants is felt by those closest to the border. Steph pointed that out. We bring in Don McLaughlin of Uvalde, Texas. You grew up on the border there. I think we're about 30 or 40 miles from the border. Tell me how bad it is there.
Well, while I was sitting here waiting to come on the air with you, we had a car chase just now through town, through neighborhoods, that the police department vehicle finally ended up crashing. I mean, and we live with this daily now. We had 2 bailouts this morning in town before 8 o'clock and 1 car chase this morning. It's just the wild, wild west.
When you say these are these car chases by ICE of illegal immigrants?
These car chases are with the coyotes hauling them in their vehicles, and they're trying to elude the Texas Department of Public Safety, Border Patrol agents, our police department, our sheriff. I mean, we've had some of these chases that start here and end 60 miles from here at over 100 miles an hour.
Wow. Stunning. So none of Steph's reporting surprises you, I bet.
No, there's of the 1.2 million that they've released in the United States, they've released 1.2 million. 97% have not checked in or never will check in. That's a proven fact. Wow. So it's crazy what we're doing, especially in a pandemic.
Now, McAllen says they're buying bus tickets, and it's created some problems because now there's no bus seats. But just in order to get people out of town, because the shelters have filled up and obviously the ICE holding facilities have long filled up, they're buying bus tickets to send people north. Are you all doing the same thing?
Well, fortunately, right now, we just passed some emergency health declarations that hopefully will stop them from releasing them in our community. But when we went through this the last time, we had buses on standby, and when they let them out, we were putting them right on another bus.
Wow, so they were actually busing them into your town. And I guess by say they, is that the Border Patrol?
It's the Border Patrol, yes, sir.
So they were.
And like I said, they were. And luckily, we have a good relationship with our Border Patrol, our local Border Patrol, because their superiors told them to go to the local convenience store in town, open the bus door out, and let them off.
It's stunning when you describe this. This is way different than anything in the past. Have you had a chance to talk to any of these folks? Are they well aware of how immigration law in America has changed?
Most of them that we've talked to and our police departments talked to and everything, all they want to know is where we're going to give them a place to live, what we're going to give them, how are we going to take care of them, how are we going to feed them. And I mean, it's crazy with everything going on.
At some level, the number of the thousands or tens of thousands that are coming through, they've already crossed the border. The coyotes that you talk about have already brought these people into America. How do you prevent that? Or are you understanding that there's not an attempt to prevent it?
Well, there's not an attempt to prevent it right now. This administration, as far as they're concerned, it's open borders. I mean, what we should do is shut our border down.
The administration says the border's closed.
Well, come on down to South Texas. Spend a day with us. This is the most hypocritical administration we've ever seen. They will not tell you the truth. They will not tell you the truth. I mean, here they are telling American citizens about mask mandates and COVID deals, and you've released 1.2 million in the United States with no COVID protocol or very little at all. I mean, the border is not closed. Del Rio, Texas, yesterday, in the Del Rio sector, 2,700 people in less than 28 hours.
2,700 people. What's the population of your town?
My town is 17,000.
Okay, so in 5 days, the population of your town comes across the border just in that sector.
Well, last month it was 21,600.
Okay, so in less than a month.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Stunning. Mayor, we really appreciate your time. Thank you. We're going to have you back on as this continues, and we certainly hope that you and your neighbors are safe during those car chases, sir.
Well, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to get the message out.
All right. Welcome back anytime. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You might say it's the tale of two Americas. Our next guest on his research on which segments of the population are not getting vaccinated, what you're not hearing from the media, and also why certain people aren't getting vaccinated. We had yet another reversal today from the CDC. They now say even vaccinated people should mask up again, especially in parts of the country with high infection rates of COVID. And everyone in K through 12 schools should wear masks, teachers, kids, etc., regardless of their vaccination status because of rising cases in unvaccinated people. Dr. Joseph Ladapo, physician, health policy researcher at UCLA's Division of General Internal Medicine and Health Sciences Service Research, joins us. Doctor, we appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Does this new CDC guidance make any sense to you?
I mean, I think it makes sense if you look at what the CDC has been doing. They've been consistent in recommending masks and other measures. So I think it makes sense in that respect. The way it doesn't make sense is the fact that we're in a point now where vaccines are available for most people in the country, and a lot of people already have natural immunity. So, some doctors, I'm one of them, feel that it's time to sort of get off this COVID treadmill and allow people to make decisions for themselves.
And at some level, do you worry that telling vaccinated people to mask up is going to make it harder to convince people to get the vaccine?
I think that's true. What's interesting is at this point, though, if you look at the uptake of the vaccine over the past several months, we're getting to the flat of the curve. So we're now at a point where most everyone who wants it has gotten it. And the people who don't want it, whatever the CDC is going to say is probably not going to make a big difference for a lot of them.
It's important to note the differences in terms of exactly where people are and are not getting this, because it goes to the rates of this and hospitalizations. We're going to walk over to the touch screen here and show you, especially in rural South parts of America. We're talking about Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, southern Missouri, especially right here where I'm from, northern Florida, low vaccination rates. And then if we're going to switch it over, we're going to see that those are also the places that have the highest rates of COVID in some of these states, especially southern Missouri, where we're seeing a number of the hospitals get overwhelmed. And doctor, I guess the question would be, in those places, is telling people to mask up going to keep them safe? Or is that just like taking nail clippers from grandma at the airport security?
Well, so the answer to your question is that it's unlikely to make a big difference. And that's the reality. The focus on masks has far outpaced any evidence for masks. I mean, it should be very obvious if you look at how these last 18 months have gone, mask mandates all over the country, and we've seen big surges and falls when there's more penetration of immunity. So, I get that people want to protect themselves, and there are ways to do that, and there's outpatient treatment, and there are other things, but the focus on masks is way outsized. I mean, it's very clear they're not nearly as effective as we're often told they are.
Well, certainly we can all agree that getting the vaccine is effective. And almost everybody who is in those hospitals in the states that we talked about are unvaccinated. Something between 99.5 and 100% of the people in the ICUs are unvaccinated. And a lot of it has to do with, in some of these areas, especially southern Missouri and Alabama, in Arkansas, it comes down to race. This is the Kaiser Family Foundation's graph that shows vaccination rates by race. Asian, 62%, white, 47%, Hispanic, 39%, black, 34%. That sort of flies in the face of the media narrative that it's the Neanderthal Trump voters who are causing this new surge in cases.
Yes, you do have to be very careful what you believe when you listen to the media, especially these days, because so much of it is agenda-driven. Well, you're absolutely correct. It is true that there is less uptake of vaccination among Republicans than Democrats, generally less among men than women. But there are also differences. That's not the whole story, right? So we know that among older people, looking at the numbers that you just cited, among older peoples, it doesn't look like that. So among older people, the rates of uptake are higher. Among younger people, they're lower. Among Black and Hispanic people, they're lower. Among Asians, they're higher. White people are somewhere in between.
I want to get
so there is more.
You talk about the narratives and the sort of the agendas, but the narrative we hear about specifically why African Americans aren't getting it, we're going to put the graph back up so folks can look at it. is that because of the history and sort of distrust of medical procedures, going back to the Tuskegee experiments and the other things which were truly awful. Joy Reid, though, tweeted this out, certainly a vocal voice in the African-American community. This was back in September. I mean, will anyone at all, ever fully trust the CDC again? Any who on God's earth would trust a vaccine approved by the FDA? How do we get a vaccine distributed after this broken Trumpist nonsense has affected everything, even if Biden wins? It seems as though that's proving true, perhaps not for the right reason.
Well, you know, it is an interesting issue, an important issue. And I think what I would suggest is that, you know, it's very difficult these days to be able to separate fact from people's political interests. So one of the things, yes, we do hear that, you know, it's because of Tuskegee that we're seeing lower rates in Black populations and other reasons related to that. And certainly, you know, the history is beyond a tragedy.
Yeah, atrocious.
But, you know, we have to be careful to be clear about what we know and what we don't know. And we actually don't fully know why the rates are lower in Black Americans. It's true. We don't know. We need to do research in those areas.
Words you never hear on television. It takes a very intelligent and secure man to say it. We don't know. When there's more answers, we're going to have you back, and more questions as well. Thanks, Doc. We'll be right back.
Thanks.
Welcome back. We want to follow up on a stunning report that detailed China's expanding nuclear ambitions. Tomorrow, we're going to speak with one of the scientists responsible for understanding what those satellite images showed. They spent hundreds of hours poring over satellite images just like this, and then suddenly, in the northwest part of China, were able to find newly built Chinese missile silos. 280 possible new nuclear missile silos in China. What that means and why the scientists were so dedicated to finding them. We'll also ask if perhaps the U.S. government has better images than they do. Also, is it possible that drinking wine could be just as healthy as hitting the gym? Some scientists are saying so. Marnie Hughes just smiled when we said that, and we're going to break that down with a Harvard data scientist tomorrow. In the meantime, Marnie and Rob with Prime next.